Okay, welcome everybody, and welcome to all our viewers on Torah Anytime throughout the world. We're so happy you join us. Again, those that want to join us live to benefit from the sushi and the fries and the wonderful Yedidim v'Chaverim here, you can join us live on Thursday nights at BGX on Avon UK. Okay, we're going to start with Parshas Mishpatim on page 416 in the Chumash, in the Stone Chumash, chapter 21. Parshas Aleph, Pasuk Aleph. The Pasuk says, "Ve'ela mishpatim asher tasim lefneim." These are the laws that you shall place before them. Literally, it means that God is telling Moshe Rabbeinu, these are the laws you should give to them. However, I want to share with you something amazing from Rabbunim Pshischa. Rabbunim Pshischa says, "Asher tasim lefneim," that it doesn't mean only that you should give before them, but it means that these laws should be lefnehem, should be first and foremost, should take priority and precedence over any other laws. In other words, there are many laws that are bein adam l'makom, that are between us and God, and there are the other types of laws that are bein adam l'chavero, interpersonal, between us and our fellow man, how we should conduct ourselves, code of behavior, what kind of people we should be, what kind of businessmen we should be, what kind of neighbors we should be, what kind of family members we should be. Says Rabbunim something amazing. He says you cannot be religious with God if you're not religious with your fellow man. It doesn't work. You cannot say that you can renounce your humanity and try to be this holy person that thinks that it's only between him and God. These laws you should put lefnehem. You should put even before the godly laws. The laws are between you and Hashem. Imagine that. The laws between you and man are more important than between you and Hashem. It's amazing. That's Rabbunim. As a matter of fact, the Gemara says, Ezor Chassid, who is a pious person. Pious doesn't mean if you go to Borough Park in Williamsburg and the Jews have pious, right? Pious means P-I-O-U-S, pious, devoted, loyal, dedicated. Someone that has an allegiance to Hashem. Someone who has piety, somebody who has righteousness. How would you define righteousness? Maybe I'd say, the guy that fasts every single day, the guy's engaging in penitence, all the time, he's pious. The guy that keeps Shabbos to the extent that he won't even leave his house because he's afraid that maybe in his pocket he forgot something that's so minute, right? So he's very, very fastidious, Baruch Hashem, very nizhar about Shabbos, or that he's afraid he'll speak divrei chol, he has the tiniest dibur, he won't even say anything on Shabbos. That's a pious. The Gemara doesn't say that. I'm not Hashem belittling. I'm not in any way deprecating those that try their best to keep Shabbos in the most ultimate and ideal form. Of course, it's very important. The Mishnah Berurah says, the Chafetz Chaim says that Shabbos is the heart, is the cardiac system of the Jewish person. He says if you're deficient or derelict in Shabbos, chas v'shalom, it's like you're dead. He says that what's going to happen is that after Olam Haba, or the time maybe of Tchias HaMesim before Olam Haba, the resurrection, time of the resurrection, so you can have a Jew that's a corpse is going to rise, and he's going to be minus a heart. He's going to be heartless. He's going to have to go to the Wizard of Oz to find a heart. All right? Dorothy is going to have to direct him. So what do you mean he's going to be heartless? There's going to be spineless Jews. The Sefer Haredim says. The Sefer Haredim is the book of Haredim. It's not what you think about in Israel, right? You have the Haredim versus the Chilonim, which is a terrible thing. There should never be a cultural divide between the Jewish people. It's a horrible thing. And especially when if Chilonim see Haredim throwing rocks at them on Shabbos, when they don't know any better, it is a travesty and it is an injustice, and they're perpetrating a great sin. That's not how we bring Jews back and close to the fold, not at all. So, but Charedim, Sefer Charedim doesn't mean, Charedim means somebody Chared Lidvar Hashem, somebody who trembles for Hashem, somebody who is exceedingly vigilant to observe the mitzvahs, Charedi. That's what Charedim means. So there's a Sefer written by the great Rabbi Eliezer called Sefer Charedim, the book of Charedim, the book of those that try their utmost to serve Hashem with diligence. So the Sefer Charedim says that every mitzvah has a corresponding body part. And for that body part that a person omits that mitzvah, then when he rises again, I have to be careful. It sounds a little like a different type of religion, second coming, rising again. But remember, they get it all from us. We're the original. Okay, so I'm not talking about. So when we rise again, we're going to come without missing the organ. Thank you so much. We're going to come missing the organ that we didn't fulfill the corresponding mitzvah. So Mishmar says the corresponding mitzvah for Shabbos is the heart. So of course you have to take Shabbos very, very seriously. But, what does it mean, a chassid? Who's a chassid? A chassid doesn't mean that you wear white socks or you wear a fur hat. That's not what a chassid is. The Gemara says, what is a chassid? Somebody that learns mili din nezikin, somebody that learns about damages. You know, there's a famous Gemara. The Gemara says, this beautiful, beautiful Gemara. It's on Baba Kama Daf, I think it's Nunam Beis, 50b, I think so. So it speaks about this guy that was, a lot of people are into their lawn maintenance. The American dream is to have a green lawn, 2 dogs, no children. The Caucasian race is not populating anymore. Nebuch, we got so liberal and so just, immoral that, people don't believe in having families, so you have a dog, you have a green lawn, you're okay. So this guy, this back, it's obviously over 2,000 years ago, it was in the time of the Gemara. This guy was taking care of his lawn, and he was taking the rocks. Sometimes pebbles could accumulate, rocks could accumulate, and what he was doing was he was throwing the rocks into the public domain, into the Rosh Hashanah. So it says that a chassid came, a pious man came, and a pious man saw it. He was doing something, engaging in something that was not appropriate. So he told him, he says, you're taking from the property that is not yours and throwing the stones into a property that is yours. Now wait, what does that mean? It's his property. He's taking from his home, throwing the stones into a public property. So when he heard this, he was very derisive. He ridiculed this great man that gave him this word of caution, of advice. And what happened was, you know what his fate was? His fate is that he lost all his money. He had to sell his house, his property, and he ended up living in the Rosh Hashanah, the public domain. And then it hit him like a ton of bricks, that whatever the chassid told him was totally accurate, because he realized that he was taking stones and throwing it from a property that wasn't his, that ultimately would not be his anymore, into a reshus that became his. And that's how Rashi translates it. All right? So therefore you have to understand that a person has to know that if he damages, it's going to end up catching up to him, and he's only damaging himself. So the Gemara says a chassid is somebody that's careful about damages, careful about ethics, careful about chas v'shalom, never pilfering, never embezzling, never committing fraud or perjury, anything of that nature. Don't take a dime or a penny or a nickel that's not yours. Because if you take it that's not yours, and chas v'shalom, you may have to come back as a reincarnation. The Arizal says as a gilgul, to have to make amends and to have to make restitution. And you don't have to do that. It may not be easy street. It may be in the guise of somebody else, and you won't understand it because the Arizal says that the person that's suffering from that gilgul doesn't understand that who his previous life was. He can't conceive it. So you have to be very, very careful. So mili din nezikin. So therefore the Rabbunim is telling us, Mishpatim. Mishpatim comes right after Matan Torah, because God is telling us, you want to know what a Torah Jew is? A Torah Jew is somebody who cares about other people's possessions. A Torah Jew is somebody that cares about other people's property. A Torah Jew is somebody who cares about other people's money. A Torah Jew is somebody who cares about the welfare and about the health and safety of somebody else. That's what a Torah Jew is. Okay, let's go further. Let's turn now to a pasuk in Mishpatim, and it's actually on page 424 if you're following in the Chumash. It's on... It's pasuk Lamed Gimel, verse 33, and it says, "V'chiyiftach ishbar." If a man digs, or rather, v'chiyiftach ishbar, he uncovers a pit, o ki yichra ishbar, or he digs a pit, v'lo yichasenu, he doesn't cover it. V'nafal shama shar chamar. And someone else's property, somebody else's possession, somebody else's animal falls into that pit. Right, today you have potholes. Right? I'll never forget it. Once I was driving and we went into a pothole. It wasn't pleasant. Pits could be perhaps borrowed Rishus Rabim. A pit in Rishus Rabim could be leave a banana peel, leave something that somebody could fall or slip on. As a matter of fact, Rabbi Salant used to say that your face could be a pit in the public domain. He says, because if you walk around and you look perturbed and upset or depressed, and then people, it's viral. We have this expression now, in the technology age, viral, right? But it becomes contagious, where you see somebody else. It's like, when one person in the room starts coughing, for some reason everybody else starts coughing, right? When one person doesn't look, happy, everybody else, then it affects everybody else. So Rabbi Shlomo said, if you walk around unhappy, you're a bar b'reshus Rabbi. That's what he said. Very interesting. You're causing an impediment to other people. So Rashi says, Yiftach ishbar, shahaya mechusa v'gilu, that it was covered, it was concealed, the pit was concealed, and you went ahead and you uncovered it, you revealed it. All right, there was a cover on it. Nobody could have fallen, but now that you took off the cover, somebody chasham could fall because you took off the cover. Then he says, O kiyichre, Loma nemar, so why does he have to tell me that if I dig it, if I just go ahead and I uncover it, and I'm chayiv, then kol shekain, how much more so, than ala kriya lo kol shekain, if I actually dig it, of course I'm chayiv. El havi korach shu chayiv. This includes somebody who went ahead and dug after somebody else already dug the pit. All he did was something very minimal, and the halacha is that he's chayiv. Okay, now I want you to look very carefully at the pasuk, and I want you to point out there's something troubling. There's something anomalous. There is something that stands out in the pasuk, and perhaps in one of the letters. I'd like you to please tell me what it is. V'chiyiftach ishbar, o kiyichra ishbar, v'lo yichasena v'nafal shama shor chamor. What is the issue?
One bore has the letter vav in it, the other bore doesn't.
Alan, you hit the jackpot. Amazing. Amazing, you won the lottery. The first bor occurrence, the first time that God uses the word bor, Torah uses the word bor, there's a vav, it's mole. It's full. The second time it's not. Okay?
Empty bore.
What? An empty bore. Excellent, very good, excellent. So here we see now the interface and the convergence between the Torah Sheb'Ksav and Torah Sheb'al Peh. Really, with total symmetry and harmony. And this is really pointed out by the Vilna Gaon, by the Gra. He asked the question. And he points out, the Gemara says in Baba Kama, that if a person goes ahead and dug a pit 9 tefachim, a tefach is approximately, let's say, 3 to 4 inches. So let's say a tefach is 4 inches. So he dug a pit of 36 inches. Now the Mishnah tells us in Baba Kama that in order to be liable, in order to be chayiv for the injury or for the damage of somebody's animal that falls into the pit has to be 40 inches. The pit has to be 10 tefachim. That's halacha. As a matter of fact, if the animal gets killed, then what's a halacha as far as an animal getting killed? There's a difference between the halacha if an animal gets injured or an animal gets killed. If the bar is less than 10 tvachim, then you're not responsible for the death of the animal.
How about a person?
Person's different. The Mishnah has all, right, very good. Okay, we're going to get into that now, but excellent. But as far as an animal, if the animal gets injured, then you're responsible even for less than 10 tvachim. Now, how do we determine this criteria? How do we understand where this halacha comes from? So the Gemara explains that there's two potentially things that could kill an animal in a pit. It's either the stagnant air, which means that the animal is suffering from oxygen deprivation or strangulation, considered to be like chenek, because there's no air in the pit. It depends, obviously, therefore, the depth of the pit. If the pit doesn't have sufficient depth, 10 tefachim, then the animal will not be strangled, the animal will not suffocate, the animal will not have total stagnation from the air. Or there's another factor that could cause the death of the animal in the pit, and that is risuk evarim, which means trauma. Because the animal sustains a fall and the injury, and therefore, again, it has to be a certain depth for the animal to sustain that trauma. If it's only 3 tvachim, so the animal slips. The animal gets a little boo-boo. But the animal's not dying, and the animal's not, it is not being put out of commission, and having to go to a chiropractor to go ahead and to, get a personal injury lawyer and pretend, that he needs, a $7 million lawsuit, okay? So that's what the determination is. It's either the risuk or it's the hevla. The hevla means the stagnation. Okay, fine. So the Gemara determines that 10 tvachim for the death, and even under 10 tvachim for the damage. That's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara speaks about a guy who went ahead and dug a pit 9 tvachim. Remember, if an animal falls there, you're not going to be liable because there's only 9 tvachim. Now, so Yankel did that. Now Chaim comes along and Chaim digs it 1 more tefach. Let's say a few more inches. Who is responsible? Remember, Yankel dug it 9 tvachim.
But he knows it's 9 already. So when he makes the 10th one, it's already making it 10. It's not only digging it 1 tefach, he knows it's 9 tefach.
It's cumulative, you're saying, right?
I'm saying...
You can't judge it based on an isolated tefach, because what he's doing is he's exacerbating the situation because he's compounding what is already there.
Exactly.
So that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, therefore, the guy that does the 1 tefach, he's chayiv, he's responsible, because it's not like he just did 1 tefach, it's like he takes responsibility, liability for all 10 tvachim. That's what it says, okay?
What about the aging condition of the animal? Because some animals could fall and they wouldn't get damaged.
Right, okay, it's a good point, it's a good point. But,
like cats, they fall out of trees and they're fine.
right, okay, but this is not right. It's not talking about that type of animal. It's talking about shor chamor, right? Which don't have, cats have a very special, Hashem created cats. You have to understand that this is neflos hapori, the wonders of creation. The Rambam used to say that you study nature, biology, you can come closer to Hashem. And therefore it's a mitzvah to study biology. Obviously not to study it with a teacher that is a heretic, but to study with an open mind for Hashem. So that cats actually have, in their physiology, they have an ability to vibrate, where they vibrate. And therefore the vibration prevents them from sustaining a trauma during the fall. And therefore cats can fall multiple times without even being injured because they naturally vibrate. It's fascinating. Very, very interesting. They're actually trying to now replicate that mechanism that's in the cat, for, let's say, acrobats maybe. So acrobats can fall and just, rebound, right? But so now, if you have a pit, think about it, if you have a pit that's 10 tvachim, and all you did was uncover it, right? You're chayiv. Certainly if you dig 10 tvachim. So Zog the Vilna Gaon, listen to what the Gra says. Beautiful. He says, V'yichiv ish bar. The first bar had 10 tvachim. It was a full bar, and you uncovered it. You're chayiv. Ay ki yichra ish bar. But let's say all you did was excavate. All you did was unearth 1 tefach. It wasn't a real bar that you made. 9 tvachim were there, but all you did was 1 tefach. That's why it has the missing vav. Because from where you're coming from your angle, you're saying, what did I do? I only did a little. No, you're chayiv. And that's why the first bar is moray and the second bar is chosar. To teach us that the halachas of hilchas bar is all in the pasuk. It shows you that this is an allusion to the actual Torah Sheba'al Peh. That's the Gra. Rameir Simcha Kayin, the Or Sameach, he says another chiddush. He says there are times when, in order for you to be liable for causing the animal harm or injury, well, let's say the death of the animal is 10 tvachim, he says, but that's only in regards to the fact that the animal is suffocating because the animal is deprived of air because it's only in 10 tvachim. He says, but sometimes when the animal falls, it doesn't have to fall into a pit that's 10 tvachim. You hear this? Listen carefully. Normally we say that the animal has to fall into a pit that's a full 10 tvachim. That has to do with the stagnation, with the suffocation. But when we're talking about an animal that's going to be dismembered, so to speak, that's going to be what? That's going to sustain a terrible injury from the fall. That could even be less than 10 tvachim. The Gemara says, how? Listen what the Gemara says. The Gemara says because if the height of the animal between its stomach and its toes is 4 tvachim, right, which would be approximately, let's say, 16 inches or so, and a pit is 6 tvachim. He says then the animal is falling. Remember, from its let's say its stomach area, right? It's falling now 4 tvachim. Then it's falling 6 tvachim. That would be in totality. That would be 10 tvachim. And you'd be chayiv. The pit itself doesn't have to be 10 tvachim.
The matcha is 6. Vav.
Vav. Yeah,
so it's 6. You said it has to be an extra 6.
6. Oh, right. So Rameir Simcha says that therefore that's why the first base vav reish, the first bar has the vav to tell us that's talking about a bar that actually has to have the full 10 tefachim, because talking about an animal that falls in there and it's being suffocated, so you need the full 10 tefachim. The second bar doesn't have the vav because it doesn't need the vav because it's telling us about a case that's for that the animal only fell. The animal fell 4 tefachim and it went into a 6 tefach bar, so it doesn't have the full yud tefachim, and that's why one has the vav and one doesn't have the vav.
So it's a gematria.
Yeah, it's sort of like Daniel said. Yeah.
Why the Torah talks about the height? Why doesn't it talk about how wide is the?
No, but because for the purpose of the trauma or the purpose of the stagnation, it's the depth that causes the potential death. Yeah.
I think the wideness is important also. If it is how wide the animal feeds or.
All right. So the Mishnah speaks about different dimensions of pits. It's true. The Mishnah does speak about that. Okay. Good. Excellent point. Now let's go. You see, amazing. You see how if you really, really probe and pry, if you really try to look heavily into the text of the pasuk, you could see the secrets exactly, and you could see the profundity, and you see the chazal.
Is it mentioned anywhere how deep the pit was for Yosef?
Yeah, the 20 amas.
Yeah.
That was much, yeah.
Oh, that was very.
Yeah, it was very. Excellent, very good. Let's go now. This is an astounding pasuk. A few pasukim later, pasuk Lamed Zayin. Ki yignov ish shor oser. A person steals an ox or a sheep or a goat. Utvachai oimacharei, and he slaughters or sells it. Okay? So you have a robber, a thief, and he goes ahead and steals somebody's ox or sheep. And then not only does he steal it, but he actually goes to the next level and he either slaughters or sells it. So halacha is that if you do mechira or tvicha, if you sell or slaughter it, you have to pay a special penalty, a special fine. Chamisha bakar yishalem tachas hashor. You have to actually pay 5 cattle for the ox and 4 sheep in place of the sheep. Okay, so the Mefarshim ask, why is that different? Maybe I should pay 5 sheep for the sheep. How come by the ox I'm paying 5 oxen, and by the sheep I'm only paying 4 sheep? So Rashi, let's see Rashi. Rashi says, Lamed Zayin, Rashi. It's around 1, 2, 3, 5 lines from the bottom on page 424. Does everybody see it? It's a left-hand column, 5 lines from the bottom on page 424. It's on verse 37, Lamed Zayin. Chamisha Bakar is the headline. Chamisha Bakar is the bold face. Okay. Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Do you have it? Daniel, yeah? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, Chas hamakom. The Rebbe Shalom chas means mercy. The Rebbe Shalom has mercy. Hamakom refers to God, the place, meaning God. God's omnipresent. Al kvodon shabrios, on the honor of humanity. Shor shaholich baraglov, a shore that is mobile, that can walk on its own. V'lonis baza bo haganav l'nasak seifo. And the thief wasn't degraded and embarrassed, ashamed, and having to carry it on his shoulders. Mishalim hey, therefore he has to pay a higher price, the thief. However, seh shenosak seifo, the sheep that he had carried on his shoulder, Mishalim dalid hov in his bazabo, you have to pay less. Why? Because you already suffered shame. You see that? It's amazing. So the Torah reduced the payment for a sheep because the thief suffers embarrassment of carrying it on his shoulders in order to make his escape.
So,
The cap, you pull the thing, it comes with it. But the sheep,
if he's getting shamed for a sin, he should get,
So says Reb Simcha Zisel of Kelm, that if you're going to get reward, so to speak, when you're a sinner, you're a thief. But Nebuch, the guy already suffered some busha. Leave him alone. Don't give him some, even the justice system, they take this into consideration also, with clemency and compassionate justice and exoneration, all these things. The guy, he already, look, he's been in the papers, his whole family. This is what prosecutors hate when the defense attorney says, listen, his family suffered so much shame already, and look, his life is over already. He'll never be able to recover. Give him less jail time, right? They're saying about the thief, the poor guy who had to walk. All right, so let him. So says Reb Simcha Zisel Kelm, how much more so if you are degraded for the sake of a mitzvah. You do the right thing. And in college they say about you, there goes Yochanan, the holy one. They make fun of him. They say, oh, he's holy roller. He's
Mendel.
You know how much reward you're going to get, says Reb Simcha Zisel Kelm. He says you're going to get so much reward. So imagine, never shy away from doing a mitzvah and being proud of doing a mitzvah, because it means that if a thief gets reward for the embarrassment that he has, how much more so do we get reward if we suffer for Hashem, if we suffer embarrassment for doing the right thing, for standing up for Hashem. Somebody told me that all his friends were watching the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not talking about this bad thing about the Super Bowl, saying, but it's big. Others would say it's bittul zman. It's a waste of time. Could do so many constructive things. Now, if a person needs to veg out, person needs downtime. Okay, that's great, and he wants entertainment. It's very entertaining. There's especially a comeback like the Kansas Chiefs had of 50 years. It's an amazing thing. It's a Musar Haskell. You can learn a lot from it. Also, how you should never give up. They forged ahead, and they really. They were role models to a degree, in that regard. But so somebody told me that he wasn't going to watch the Super Bowl. He was going to learn instead. And some people said to him, they made fun of him. I said to him, you have the Shekhinah on you. You're going to get so much reward. Baruch Hashem. Never be ashamed for doing the right thing. Never be ashamed. Hashem is going to reward you. Don't worry. You don't have to worry. So that's Reb Simcha Zisel Kelm. Okay, but let's go further. This is very, very deep now. There's a Medrash Pliya, a wondrous medrash that says something astounding. It says that, you sold the ox, and now you have to pay 5 more. Well, you sold the ox, you have to pay 5 more. It's on this verse. What does that mean? It means you Jewish people sold the ox, and now you have to pay 5 times more. Now we know that who pays 5 times more? The thief that steals an ox has to pay as a penalty.
Isn't he actually negative midah?
Perhaps.
So
But let's see what it's about. So he has to pay, right? Now, it says you stole you Jewish people. When did the Jewish people collectively steal an ox? And you have to pay commensurate with your souls 5 times the amount. What's going on here? You won't believe it. You know what this is referring to? No, it's referring to, who was the ox?
The gold they used for the eagle?
Very good. 1 second. Who was the lion in Judaism? Yehuda. And who's the ox? Yosef. Yosef was called the ox. Bechor Shoro Hodor Lo. Yosef was called the ox. Who stole the ox? The brothers. They stole an ox. Right? They kidnapped an ox. You will have to pay 5 times the amount. When did the Jewish people have to make restitution, compensation 5 times the amount for selling Yosef? Okay, are you ready for this? You ready for this? Okay, what?
Martyrs? The 10 martyrs?
That's 10, not 5.
Right, we need the right calculation here. Good, close, but no.
The years they spent
in Israel from Yosef's years of slavery?
No, so I'll tell you, there's a famous pasuk in Koheles. Do we have the book of Koheles in the back of the Chumash here?
Yeah.
Page.
Well, start.
Excellent, very good. It's on page 1285, right? So if you look on page 12,
I'm sorry, I have a question. I don't understand. So if somebody steals a cow, has to pay 5. So what,
5 cattle.
a cow.
Yeah, 5 cattle he has to pay back. Yeah.
What if he sells the cow? He has to pay another 5?
No, not if he sells. If he sells, he only has to pay one. He has to return what he. If he steals, he has to pay what he returns. It's only if he went ahead and he violated further. So he violated further by either slaughtering it or selling it. That's when he has to pay the penalty of 5. Yeah. Now, chapter 7, verse 28 in Ecclesiastes, page 1284. So the pasuk says, "Asha'od biksha nafshi v'lo matzasi," right? Which yet my soul seeks, but I have not found. What I have not found? Adam echad me'elef matzasi. 1 man in 1,000 I have found. V'isha b'chol eila lo matzasi. But 1 woman among them I have not found. Now, many people that are not familiar, that read this superficially, and that don't give it due justice, they think that this is sexist or racist or chauvinistic, that this is saying that you can't find the proper woman anywhere. Now, the shidduch crisis, right? A lot of guys, I can't find a woman, That's not what it means. That means that what? Well, look what it says. It says, 1 man in 1,000 I have, but 1 woman, impossible. A woman is lower than a man. That's what it sounds like. No. It's not what it means. It's not what it means. Listen to what it means. You won't believe it. This is referring to the Chet Egel Hazav, the sin of the golden calf. Who participated in the golden calf?
Right.
The men. The women were righteous. Noshim tzikonios. Women were holy. The woman refused to participate. The woman totally, excuse me 1 second please. The woman totally refrained from engaging in the terrible, terrible sin of the golden calf. So listen what the pasuk says. V'isha b'chol eila lo matzasi. I have never found a woman. When it came to the time, it wasn't because the women were cheap. When Aaron the Kohen Gadol, Aaron the high priest, he comes and he says, "Ladies, give me your jewelry." Now, my jewelry, my earrings, my necklaces. Now, when it came to the tabernacle and came to the Mishkan, they gave it right away. So women weren't cheap or frugal. Because the women, they loved Hashem more than the men did. But how many men participated? 1 second. So listen what it says. Adam echad me'elef matzasi. I found 1 in 1,000 men. You ready for this? Look at Parshas Kisisa. How many men perished as a result of the golden calf amongst the Jewish people? Let's go do your detective work. You could cheat. Open book policy here. Look it up. Dun 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 dun. We need a drum roll here. Let's go, drum roll.
Where is it in Kisisa?
I'm sorry, what?
Where in Kisisa?
120,000?
Cold.
3,000.
If we were playing hot and cold.
3,000?
2,000, 6,000, or 15,000.
I think that Alan's on a roll tonight.
3,000.
Alan, we're proud of you.
3,000.
Proud of you. 3,000. 3,000 died. 1 second. How many did the sin?
2,000.
600! Yes, 600 Jews sinned! So God says, you made a calf. A calf is like an ox. You got to pay 5 times the amount of those that should have died. 600 times 5 is 3,000. How many Jews were there in entirety? And the Jewish people? How many men? 600,000. Good, Yecheskel. 600,000. 1 second. 1 in 1,000. How much would be 1 in 1,000? 1 in 1,000 would be 600. Exactly. Echad me'alef. Remember the pasuk in Kohelet says, Echad me'alef matzasi. I found 1 in 1,000. But Isha, I didn't find 1 woman that perpetrated the sin. Now it all makes perfect sense. Says the Medrash plea on the pasuk of stealing an ox and slaughtering it or selling it. You got to pay 5 times the amount. The Medrash says when the Jews sold or kidnapped the ox, they had to pay 5 times the amount. They should have only had 600 fatalities. Instead, they had 600 times 5, which is 3,000. It all stims. It all makes sense. Isn't it amazing?
Wild.
It's amazing.
Korban.
Amazing. You see, everything's in the Torah. Everything's there. All you got to do is fine comb it. Hafachba v'hafachba dekolaba. Delve into it deeply. This is the Damesek Eliezer. The great Damesek Eliezer had this Chiddush. The great Damesek Eliezer. Now,
Did the women get any rewards for that?
I'm sorry?
The women.
Yes, of course they got a reward. The woman got the reward that they were gifted the holiday of Rosh Chodesh. 12 holidays a year as a reward for not participating in Egel Hazav. But we're not going to talk so much about the golden calf because that's a coming attraction. It's a few weeks away. We're not up to there yet. We're still in Parshas Mishpatim. Okay, now, I got to tell you. The Pasuk, let's go back to Mishpatim now. Eila Mishpatim shematasim lefneihem. One of the cardinal rules of judges and justices is misunim bedin, is to deliberate in din, not to be hasty in rendering a verdict, but to be very, very, very careful and cautious and deliberate. And I want to tell you that Hashem gave special siyata d'shmaya, special divine and heavenly assistance to our great chachamim when they had to render judgments and preside over and conduct Dinei Torah, which was court cases. First of all, you have to understand that our Chachamim, there was no one that was their equal in their knowledge. First of all, of course, in their holiness, in their righteousness, in their piety, in their humanity, in their compassion and kindness. You study the biographies, whether it's Rav Moshe Feinstein or Rav Pamzatzal, any Rav Shlomo Zalman, any of the greats. These are people that, it wasn't like Bertrand Russell, who taught ethics in Harvard, and then he was apprehended for some kind of crime, sordid type of crimes. And somebody asked him in the courthouse, he said, "You of all people, how could you be guilty of such a thing? You teach ethics." And he said, "Excuse me." He says, "Do you expect a geometry professor to become a triangle?" He said, "So I teach it. Do I have to live it?" That's not the Torah. The Torah is a Sam L'chaim. It's supposed to be medicine for life. Unfortunately, there are people that take advantage of the Torah and they use it for poison. They use the knowledge for self-aggrandizement and for self-indulgence, so to speak, and to alienate people. And for those that were at the Daf Yomi Shir last night, you remember we learned the Tosfos that said that even Talmidei Chachamim, they should not become elitist and they should not, pretend to be holier than thou. It's a very, very big sin to do that. It's a terrible thing. So, by us, our Chachamim were always just ingrained with a Torah perspective, a Torah attitude, where they were humble, they were kind, they were helpful, they were sweet. They were always dripping with goodness and exuding with kindness. So their knowledge never made them, conceited or bombastic. The knowledge made them more humble because they knew that the Torah is so wide and so encompassing, and that the Torah is infinite. And the more knowledge they had, the more they realized. The more they knew, the more they realized how much they don't know. So I want to tell you an amazing Maisa about Rabbi Yaakov of Lisa. Rabbi Yaakov of Lisa was, of course, known as the Nesivus, because he was his magnum opus, the Nesivus HaMishpat, or the Chavas Doas, was the other sefer in Shalos Tshuvas. Rabbi Yaakov of Lisa was a contemporary and a colleague of Rabbi Akiva Eiger, the great Rabbi Akiva Eiger. So they said that you didn't know humility until you saw Rabbi Akiva Eiger. That's what they said about him. He was so kind and so, really the epitome of humility. So they say that one time, by the way, Rabbi Akiva Eiger fainted when he was in shul. Why? because he and Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer were both in shul together, and they honored Rabbi Akiva Eiger with the Aliyah to be called up to the Torah instead of Rabbi Yaakov of Lisa, and Rabbi Akiva Eiger was mortified that he got an honor over Rabbi Yaakov Lisa, and he fainted. Imagine that. One time, actually, Rabbi Akiva Eiger and Rabbi Yaakov Lisa were in a chariot together. They were going on an important meeting to visit a certain town, and everybody from the town, it's like a hero's welcome. It's like, the majesty is coming. That's how we revere our Talmidei Chacham, our rabbis. We stand up for there's halachas. How do you have to stand up for the Talmid Chacham? How you have to have deference and reverence and respect. So the whole town came out to escort them and to accompany them. And Rabbi Akiva Eiger is sitting there in the chariot, and he's saying to himself, it's so nice that they have so much respect for my colleague, the Nesivos, Rabbi Yaakov. I really feel I want to show him respect also. I'm going to go out with the crowd and escort the chariot for the great rabbi. So he goes ahead and he, surreptitiously, he sneaks out of the chariot and he goes into the crowd and he's escorting now Rabbi Yaakov Lisa. And meets Rabbi Yaakov Lisa, who had a sefer glued to his, he's learning the whole time. He says to himself, I hear the whole commotion outside. It's so nice that everybody came to pay homage and respect to the great Rabbi Akiva Eiger. I also want to participate in honoring, the great Rav and Tzaddik Rabbi Akiva Eiger. So he sneaks out of the carriage, and he's in the crowd now. So everybody, you have thousands of people all escorting an empty chariot. No one was in it, They're looking, where the great Talmidei Chacham, where the great Tzaddik, and nobody was in it. That's how these people were. These angels, these human angels, this is how they were. Anyhow, so Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer, the guy came to him, talking about Mishpatim, how to judge a case. You ready for this? And understanding the tremendous knowledge, the genius that our Chachamim had from their Torah learning, because they were very keen in human nature. They understood human nature because they studied so much Torah, and they also understood people. So a guy came to Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer, and he said, I found this golden coin, a valuable golden coin. I'm sorry, Jeff. And I found it in the street. And yet, as soon as I found it, this guy attacked me. Another Jew. He attacked me. And he attacked me and he said, that coin that you found, I dropped before you found it. It's mine. And there was a whole scuffle, there's a whole dispute, and it got very, very antagonistic. And the guy, what? But the guy wouldn't leave him alone. He wouldn't leave him alone. He said, "It's mine. It's mine. You found it right after I dropped it." And this is what they're fighting about. So Rabbi Yaakov Eliezer, he was thinking about it. And came up with an amazing idea. This is what he said. He said to the guy that found it, he said, listen to me carefully. And he spoke when the other fellow was outside in the other room. He was in the other room. But he spoke in a very audible way, very coherent and very audible, so that the other guy should hear, the guy sitting outside. And he says like this, he says, are you sure this is the one you found? This particular coin, this expensive golden coin that you found, has a crack beneath, and he goes in and it's very descriptive, and he gives, and he says it has a crack over here. Are you sure that this is the one that you found? Maybe it's another one. What happens? He then says, okay, let's call in the other guy. And he says to the other guy, the law is that if you want to claim an object, you have to prove it's yours by giving a siman, by giving a sign. Is there any way for you to tell us exactly whether you know for sure that this is you? So he says, yes, indeed. I have a proof. There's a crack, and he describes exactly what he overheard. But Rabbi Yaakov made it all up. And he says, "You thief! There's no sign like that! You're a liar!" And he threw him out. And of course, the guy that found it was able to keep it. That was the Nesivus, the genius, to think of such a plan. But let's talk about another story. The great Shlomo Kluger, the Marshak, Shlomo Kluger. They say that about the Shlomo Kluger, that actually, when he was a boy, Nebuch, he was a Yosem, he lost his mother, and his father was very, very indigent. His father had nothing. His father was blind, and he used to escort his father everywhere and try to help out his father. He had no schooling. They were homeless. Terrible life, terrible situation. Until one day they came across the Maggid of Dubna, the Dubna Maggid. Dubna Maggid took in the father and the boy and gave them shelter, gave them room and board, nurtured the boy, and hired a Malamed, hired a Rebbe for the boy. The boy's father died, and the Dubna Maggid raised the boy. This boy became the Gadol Hador, Rosh Shlomo Kluger. Imagine that. Little did the Dubna Maggid know that by taking in this little boy and giving him a shot at life, nurturing him, cultivating him, elevating him, instilling midos into him, and giving him a Torah education, he was raising the Gadol Hador, the future Gadol Hador. You know, anybody that would have looked, any casual bystander or objective observer would have looked and see this kid, Nebuch, a homeless, vagrant kid, escorting a father that was blind, that was a pauper. No one would have thought that this kid would end up the Gadol Hador. Can you imagine? That boy became Shlomo Kluger. So the man came to Shlomo Kluger once, and he said, "Listen, I work for a guy who has a wine cellar. He has many barrels of wine, and I'm his employee. One day, I took my purse with all my earnings, and I hid it in the wine cellar. I came back, and it was gone. Somebody stole it. And I tell you, I know who stole it," he told Shlomo Kluger. "It's my boss, the owner of the wine cellar, because he's the only one that has the key. I and he are the only ones that have the key." Shlomo Kluger called in the owner of the wine cellar, and he said, "You know, your employee had a purse, all his earnings. It's gone. What do you think happened to it?" He says, "I didn't take it. That wasn't me. I would never do such a thing. Far be it from me, chas v'shalom, chas v'chalila. Heaven forbid. Me, a ganav. Ay, 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 ay. Look at my beard. Look at my palach. I'm a good Jew. I would never." Shlomo Kluger said, "Okay." He turns to the other guy, and the other guy says, "Listen, Kvoid Rav, there's only one person that has the key. It's him." Shlomo Kluger says, the Heilige Shlomo Kluger says to the owner, he says, "You know, chas v'shalom, to be chayshid you, we would never suspect you. No, you're a fine yid, you're a good Jew. A Jew would never do, you're right, a Jew would never do something like that. It must have been, it had to be then if you didn't do it. Of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't do it. How, we could never know. Of course it wasn't you. It would never, no. It must have been. And one of the Goyim stole your key once. It had to be. That's now I understand. Got in there. But I have very bad news for you. Because it was one of the Goyim that did it, as of course you never would do it. You know, now that the guy went into the wine, I'm very sorry, but you have a loss of thousands and thousands of dollars because nobody could drink the wine anymore. But that's, you know, I'm sorry, but hopefully we'll find the thief." And the guy said, "What? I lost thousands. I stole his purse. It was me. It was me. I did it. Oh, you ganav, you know." He was a ganav. He was a ganav. The Shlomo Kluger, the genius of Shlomo Kluger, right?
Isn't there halakha that if Goyim don't intentionally, it is if they intentionally do it, then it's not as
right? If they intentionally do it, shake it, right? There's some shenit. Right. Listen, the guy that he spoke to was obviously an Amma Oretz. He's a ganav, right? So he didn't have to tell him all the technical details of the law. He told him, it was all a ruse to bring out the truth. Understand? So the Eilam Mishpatim Asher Tosan Lefneim. The Torah gave us Mishpatim rules, ordinances, and protocols that follow. We follow these laws and protocols. Remember what Rabbunim said, Asher Tosim Lefneim. These things come before Bein Adam L'Makom. Because you can't be a Yiddish hypocrite. If you are somebody that steals from somebody, if you're somebody that takes advantage of somebody, a Zol Chassid Milei de Nezikin, a true Chassid is somebody that exercises caution with Nezikin, that is very careful about somebody else's money, that is very careful never to take advantage of somebody. L'fneihem, put these mitzvahs before the mitzvahs Bein Adam L'Makom. Be an ethical and moral Yid. Be an ethical and moral Jew. Okay, Yeshkach everybody, thank you for coming, thank you for listening. Baruch Hashem, we accomplished a lot. And now stay tuned, Baruch Hashem, for our next year with Rabbi Goodstein, Baruch Hashem, and Cholt. Okay, Yeshkach everybody. I want to encourage everybody though.